Alrighty, the Rick Jensen Show continues. I'm producer Randy filling in today. And in the studio, I have Alex Ballard from the Armed Black Movement. And Tammy is joining Alex. And Dave Casey's on the phone as well. So let's get mics up and on here. Yeah, get right up on those mics. Yeah, there you go. All right, fantastic. Sorry, I didn't set you up a little better there. Say hello to everyone, if you will.
Hello. Good afternoon.
All right. Let me get Dave up, too, because this is kind of a, I guess you guys are this was scheduled so that you were all on at the same time. And he, I'm sure, has a lot of insight. Make sure Dave can hear you. Hello, Dave. How are you? Dave Casey, Libertarian Chair of Newcastle County. How you been?
How are you guys? Great to be here, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in. Well, I'll just put it out there. Why don't you explain to us a little bit about the Armed Black Movement and what's going on here in Delaware?
Absolutely. So the Armed Black Movement initially started out as just my personal interest in the Second Amendment and being proactive in that when I moved to Delaware. And I started to reach out and seek to interact with other people in the black community that was doing the same thing, because I quickly realized that as important as it was, or as it is to everybody, we're one of the groups that aren't taking part in it. And that's really critical for us, especially with all the things that we face. So it really started as a social movement to just network with people, and then it became like a calling on me to be formal in introducing the Second Amendment and responsible gun ownership to my community. And so I've been on that path and that journey for about 5 or 6 years now. So it started out as an Instagram page where I would network with other instructors, because I'm also an NRA certified instructor, and just seeking to meet other instructors and other people who are being proactive about Second Amendment and educating themselves and taking their family's personal defense, basically taking accountability for that themselves and not relying on anyone else. And so then it grew. And so I started to meet people, and that's how I met Tammy here. Tammy's also an instructor now. Started out as a student, and she's a mom, and she's a nurse. She teaches first aid, stop the bleed, and CPR. So the movement is more than just about guns. It's about being armed and educated so that we can protect our community in all the different, facets that we need to, but needs to be more proactive about the physical aspect, because we've been kind of absent from that table. And we saw that this year when we were trying to fight those bills. We suffered largely in the North because the black community wasn't behind the bills the way they should have been. And we still came out, relatively minor scathed, but we need to have a stronger force. This is not a white thing, a black thing. This is something that everyone needs to be proactive in. So that's what we do. The goal is to be intentional and proactive about the Second Amendment in a responsible way.
Yeah, I think a lot of times politicians will see a problem and then go, oh, well, maybe we should get rid of this one particular gun and that'll make everything better. And I've been pro 2A decades before I ever fired the first time I ever shot the first bullet out of a gun in my life, but I always figured the Bill of Rights is obviously very important, that they're individual rights. And then I even had I once had I live in Pennsylvania, so it's a little more gun friendly than Delaware.
Gotcha.
But, it's a shall issue state.
You can have suppressors and all kind of fun things.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's weird that PA is so pro 2A. It's because we're right next to Jersey, which couldn't be more anti Second Amendment, and Maryland's not very. Yeah,
you're sandwiched in between the anti-2. Yeah,
New York.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know what Ohio's like, but it's so far away, it doesn't matter. But I at one time had a woman who was running in my township, who's running for the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, and she comes to my door and she starts explaining. And I go, well, I've heard your opinion on the Second Amendment, and she goes, well, that's for the militia. And I'm like, why would the other 9 amendments in the Bill of Rights be individual rights? And then why would just one of them just randomly be for like a government-sanctioned army of some sorts? And she was just like, you're blowing my mind. you better read it again. I'm like, no, I've read it a few times.
Right. I think that the problem is it's become politicized.
Yeah.
You know, I like to scale things down to the simplest terms. You know, in my home, I have a smoke detector, I have a fire extinguisher. Okay. I also have door locks, alarms, and a firearm.
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so when people say, oh, I'm anti-gun or I'm against firearms, and I say, well, if somebody kicks your door and who do you call? They say the police. I say, well, I don't know if anyone told you, but they got guns. They're going to come with a gun.
Yeah.
So you're going to wait for the tool that you need to arrive instead of being proactive about it. You might as well throw out your fire extinguisher as well because you can call the fire department. It doesn't make sense when you scale it down to it's just common sense. And so when things get politicized, that's when it gets messy, and that's what we're dealing with. This is not a political issue. This is a God-given right. When you take your first breath, you have the right to maintain and protect that breath. And no one gets the right to say how you go about doing that. Whatever tool that you can be efficient with using to do that, that's what you have the right to do as long as it's not illegal. And by the Constitution, we were squared away on this tool years ago, and we're wasting a lot of time and tax dollars on it. And that's the really frustrating part, especially as a young parent. There's a lot more things that we could be doing with our time and money. You know, they rushed the session to have these bills viewed when we have a pandemic, and you could be rushing things that are health-related, healthcare programs, food programs, so people can get the things that they need in a pandemic, and you're playing politics.
Wasn't this during the Zoom meetings too? So you're not really in a room with either people applauding you or you know, booing you or whatever.
And they were very rude.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they have, you know, a button to click you off. Even if they cut your mic off. I know, like at our Westchester area school district, I'm, like I said, in Pennsylvania, when you see somebody speaking and they don't like it, they'll shut the mic off. Well, everyone has a camera, and you could still hear the person not on mic, but you can turn it up later and go, oh, that's what she said. You know,
and that's the first thing she said when I talked to her after. She was like, wow, they were rude. They would, like, you would mid-sentence, click.
And just shut you off on Zoom? And there's
no respect for the taxpayer. So, yeah, it was disgusting.
Yeah, I don't think they should have passed anything during the pandemic, unless you're live in person and you have a chance to be heard. I think all that could have been put on the back burner.
They showed their true intent.
Yeah, yeah. So why don't you refresh everyone's memory? What were the two bills? Because people were calling in and supporting a lot of pro-gun people call this show, because Rick's very pro-gun.
Right. I may get the numbers mixed up, but it was SB3 and SB6. SB3 was a permit to purchase requirement. So we would have essentially been like New Jersey, where every handgun that you want to purchase, you have to get a permit for that handgun. And the shame in that is when I started to talk to folks about it who were in support of it, they were like, yeah, well, it makes sense. I believe you should have to get a background check before you purchase a pistol. I said, I agree. I said, and that's what happens now. I said, you and I can go to Cabela's right now. You can pick out a firearm, and you're going to have to fill out a form. They're going to have to call the number and run the background check. Yeah. I said, all this is doing is making you get a permit to even walk in the store and have that conversation. Oh, wow. The process doesn't change. They're not doing any additional background checks with the permit to purchase card. You still have to get the background check done. And so when people started to find that out, they were like, wow, really? So what? Yes, they're playing politics, and they're being oppressive because it's a barrier to entry. You're talking about another roughly $1,000 that it will cost from the training that they were trying to initiate and the cost for the permit process. You're implementing a barrier to entry to take advantage of a right.
Yeah, you're pricing
freedom.
People out of it.
You're pricing your rights. Yeah, that's not how that works.
Yeah, somebody might not have an extra $1,000 for that, but then you might have an uncle or somebody that could show you how to safely use it or whatever. You know, you shouldn't be priced out of protecting yourself. You don't take $1,000 worth of lessons to grab a baseball bat or board with a nail in it. So, or a knife. I mean, for that matter, it's very crazy. Dave, you can feel free to chime in whenever you want there.
Oh, thanks, man. Good to be here, guys. I was just, I'm learning lots, listening. So
okay, all right, fantastic.
But no, I just, if anything, I would add that, if I'm bringing anything here right now, it's that the Libertarian Party is interested in coalitioning with groups where we align this deeply. So I've never met Alex, though we just recently put out a joint statement together of the Libertarian Party, Newcastle County, and Armed Black Movement, because his mission is completely in line with our values. So we might not see everything eye to eye politically or culturally, and that's cool because this is where we do align and this is where we need to work together. And truth be told, just personally, I guess I culturally come from the left, so I was not, and I guess I was anti-gun at a certain point in my life, just because, you know, you hear, again, I can relate to these people now and why they're being taken advantage of. Oh, instrument hurts people? Well, remove that. You know, it's the same like people don't make enough money, raise minimum wage. This is kind of like where the debate ends. But it's a lot deeper than that, and it is a human right to be able to defend yourself and your home and your family. And, you know, some in my circles don't even think that the Second Amendment has done enough. And obviously it's a death by 1,000 pricks through licensing and everything else. And this is, again, where the government is the problem. In fact, you know, if you have, you know, cannabis in your house at the same time you have a firearm in Delaware, you're a felon. So everybody listening, guess what? That's where we're at. So, you know, think about that medical card. If you cherish your Second Amendment right, it's a guaranteed right. That's what the Constitution does. It guarantees your natural right. So we need to fight for that. It should not be just this is the equivalent to a gun-free zone sign. You know, how much has it really worked? We need to. That's why we're here. That's why we're aligning with groups like Armed Black Movement and Black Guns Matter, and we need to really embrace that. Get the Bill of Rights, everyone. Embrace that. That's what we need. So,
I've often thought like this legalization of marijuana, they could have a sinister motive to be, you know, hey, yeah, you can legally have weed, but now you can't have pot. You know, like you just said, you're committing a felony if you have pot and a handgun.
That medical classification is like the essential. You know, like you see on the side of a pill bottle that says "Do not operate heavy machinery." They're putting you into a new category. So you're a medical patient. So you can't have this instrument because we've deemed that dangerous. So again, yeah, this is just death by 1,000 pricks, man. They're going to take it. They're coming for them. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's scary. Do you have anything to add to that with the?
I haven't really touched that one yet because just the whole concept for me and you know where I come from and how it's flopped from being something where you basically can lose your freedom and never see your family again to seeing people prosper and make millions and billions off of it, and now to associate it with if you do have a firearm and you need that for medicinal reasons, then so I haven't even wrapped my head around that enough because to me it's just all still settling. And personally, I don't have a vested interest in it as far as, you know, with the firearms thing is concerned. So I'm just kind of watching the show right now. But it definitely looks like the setup for the long shot.
Yeah. To touch on something you brought up before, you'll often hear people say, well, there should be background checks. There should be background checks. And then they'll say, well, then there's not background checks at the gun shows. Well, I've been in a lot of gun shows, and I went there with friends that are buying their guns, and they all had background checks. I mean, there's every guy's in there on a cell phone. They don't want to lose their FFLs. Right. You know, so they're federal firearm license. They don't want to lose that. You know, it'd be like a guy who has an inspection station for a car safety doesn't want to just go, let me, your car has no brakes, but I'll send you out of here. Bye. Have a nice time because I want to make $20 on the sticker.
All right.
You know, they want to replace your brakes and then put the right sticker on.
Exactly. So, you can't write law and policy for free will. You can have a kid go in the liquor store and buy liquor. If the guy chooses to sell it to him, that's not the law. That's not the policy. It's about freedom of choice and free will. And that's what you have at a gun show. The policy doesn't change at a gun show, but just like anywhere else, you have free will, and people have the ability to act unethically, and you can't write laws for that because they're criminals when they do that. So when you write more laws for criminals, you're wasting time and resources again, and that's what doesn't make sense. Okay, the criminals they're breaking these laws. What should we do? Write more laws.
Yeah.
That's not logical on any level. So that's what you're dealing with. You can't write out free will.
You know, after that situation in Las Vegas, even Trump and a lot of guys just ignore it because they don't want bump stocks. And I don't want bump stocks, but I also, you know, I play guitar and there's certain guitars I don't want. And I play drums and, you know, there's just, but why would I want to limit other people that might want that? You know what I mean? So Trump instantly want no more bump stocks. Like that's going to solve anything. It was more like window dressing just to say, okay, I did something. And I think once you start that, I know it's cliche, it's a slippery slope, but it is. It's a slippery slope. I mean, I would rather anti-gun people just blurt it out. I want full confiscation. Because that's, let's face it, that's what most people really want. Because they're going to go, well,
a little O'Rourke style, yeah.
yeah. They want to go, oh, well, if that can fire 15 rounds, then get rid of the 15 rounds, you can have 10. And once you have 10, you can have 6. And once you have 6, you can have no gun.
Right. Nobody should make these concessions. These are all infringements, every single one of them. And the truth is, yeah, it's awful that Trump kicked that off with that. But the fact is that with 3D printers, there's no such thing as gun control. And they know that. The files are out there. As long as there's internet, there will be guns without serial numbers, and there's nothing that can stop that. So again, every single law, like I would say, this is my argument to conservatives, every single concession you've made over the past 100 years, at least, has led to this point where, again, you go to buy a gun. If you're a legal gun owner, you're going through all of the channels, doing all the things right, and you're really being the ones that are targeted. And you've created, the state has created a funnel to the black market. I mean, look at Afghanistan. Look how much weaponry they just inherited. I mean, that's a transfer of wealth if I've ever seen one. So, yeah, it's all an infringement, all of it, and everyone has the human right to have a gun.
Would you guys like to take a phone call?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let me I'm going to lock you in, and I believe this is Greg. You're on the air. Is this Greg?
Hey, Randy. Hey. Hello, gentlemen. How you doing?
And Tammy is here as well.
Hey.
A couple things. First of all, Randy knows I'm a tough grader, you might say. Every time I call in, just about I got a complaint. So, but I really respect and appreciate your organization. I just joined your Facebook group,
Thank you.
That's good. And it's amazing. So the Democrats, black people can't vote, so they have to give them all these special things, but they sure can't help them get a registered legal gun, can they?
Right. I mean, for me, I don't associate with any political party. Politics is like, I don't believe you can trust politicians. They have an agenda, and I kind of equate politicians to whores, right? They have a purpose. They get paid for their dirty work, and you know what you use them for, and you need to make sure that when you're interacting with them, you're aware of what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a bad situation. So I never look at any political party as a trustworthy source for, like improving the conditions that we deal with, because they're not going to do what's right. They're going to do what they have the obligation to, who has contributed to the most to them. So that's kind of how that works. So when you're talking about helping, people in the black community in terms of bettering themselves and getting access to firearms legally, there's a lot that could be done. Simply from an education perspective, when you talk about where we are right now with Wilmington and the city of Philadelphia, what we have going on with violence, not gun violence, but just violence. There's no such thing as gun violence, right? There can be a lot that's done from an educational perspective, because it's not people like us that are out doing these things. So when they write laws, they're literally writing them to be oppressive to the people who follow the laws. The criminals are the ones that are doing all the things you hear about in the news. So no law is going to fix that. You have to put resources and education into these places and actually show an interest. And that's what politicians don't do. So no, the Democrats can't help. The Democrats can't help us do anything. In the past 40 plus years have proved that. It's the same dog and pony show. And I'm amazed that people still entertain it, honestly. It's a real simple approach. When you're dealing with people, people have basic needs. You provide and address those needs, and then people can prosper. It's pretty simple. And protecting yourself is one of those basic needs.
Well, very good. We got some spots coming up. Greg, did you have anything else you want to chime
Andy,
in?
thank you. Thank you for having them on. And there's not a word I can disagree with, nor is there a word I can add to it. It's spoke for itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. Thanks, Greg. All right.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll be back right after these words.
Rick Jensen on 1150 AM, 1017 FM, WDEL.
All right, yes, it's producer Andy filling in today for Rick. In the studio, I have Alex Ballard from the Armed Black Movement, joined by Tammy in the studio as well, and Dave Casey from he's the chair of the Newcastle County Libertarian Party. And this will be a quick segment because we have another news break coming up. But if you guys can hang out, we can do some more after the news if that's cool with you. All right, fantastic. All right, very good. Do you have a website or something? If somebody wants to, I know Greg just mentioned that he joined your Facebook. Oh, sorry, I didn't have your mic on.
Facebook, yeah. So I have my Facebook website is Armed Black Movement. Let me get the exact www. The Facebook throw me off, but I have a general website, armedblackgear.com, where you can get the T-shirts and gear from. And then you can find me on Instagram, armed_black_movement.
All right, awesome. Well, I was on the Facebook page. I wanted to make sure it's the right one. And then as soon as I saw you, I said, yeah, I was on the right one. Now I recognize it. I was watching some of your videos. Hey, the news is coming up. Stay tuned for more of it right after these words.
Rick Jensen on 1150 AM, 1017 FM, WDEL.
Alrighty, it's producer Randy filling in for Rick today. In the studio, we have Alex Ballard and Tammy. On the phone, we have Dave Casey. We're talking about the Armed Black Movement. And if Rick were here, Rick is actually extremely pro 2A, which is awesome. I'm a total nut job, crackpot libertarian, so I'm as pro 2A as it gets. But and Rick's libertarian-leaning Republican, but I'll tell you, he blows me away sometimes. Like I'm like, wow, you are super, super, super pro 2A. I mean, we couldn't be more. I couldn't agree with him more on it. I'm like. Usually a lot of people are like, well, you should be allowed to have guns, but you shouldn't have this. And yeah. It's like, well, why do you care what I would have?
Right.
So, all right. You mentioned you were from. Oops, there's Dave. All right. You mentioned you were from. You just came to Delaware recently, or
10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I moved to Delaware in 2010.
Where were you before?
New Jersey. I'm originally from New Jersey.
Oh, wow. The People's Republic of New Jersey. It's very, very hard to get a gun there.
Very hard. Actually, legally, very hard. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. You could probably get an illegal one easily. Yeah, which is sad because all you're doing is restricting the law-abiding citizens that want to protect themselves against the people that don't care about. I mean, it's just so the thinking is so backwards. So it's just to say I'll solve all these murders. I mean, it just all you have to do is look at all the big cities where it's super impossible to get a gun, and most gun laws like Chicago, and there's just like how many you can't even keep up with it. There's probably like 12 a night or something, and don't look at that. Let's look over here in case if there's one school shooting. Let's concentrate on that. But they never. The news just doesn't seem to care about the gun violence in the cities where there's 1,000 laws that says you can't keep a gun.
Right.
It's very unusual. Trump, when he was running, said something that I agreed strongly with. He said that carry permits. First of all, let me back up a little bit here. I don't think I should have to have a carry permit, but I also don't want to go to prison. So I would get one. I have one in Pennsylvania. But I mean, our carry permits should be the Second Amendment. You know,
right.
Started 1776, expires death. You know, I'm all for that. But you know, the genie's out of the bottle, and this is where we are.
Right.
But we really shouldn't have to get them. But
correct. It's control, it's oppression, and it's just politics, because it does nothing for the betterment of any community in terms of safety. Like you said, if you look at New York City, if you look at Newark, New Jersey, you know, these cities, you know, Baltimore, like, it's not easy to get guns, and it's not easy legally, and it's not easy to get carry permits. And so you're making stricter laws so people like her and I can't simply protect our family, and make it really difficult and also expensive as well. And it's just I haven't had a rational conversation with someone who's against the Second Amendment. And for me, it's just that simple. Let's just have a rational conversation. What are you trying to do? Well, we want to keep people safe, and we want to not have people die as much as they do. Okay, well, there's probably 10 things we need to address before we get to firearms, because that's not the leading death, and that's not even in a race. If you're talking about people's safety and keeping people alive, let's talk about how I can go in Wilmington and I can purchase alcohol before noon or before 10 a.m. You know, there's a lot that we can do in terms of keeping people safe that has nothing to do with firearms.
Yeah, that says a lot there. You've said a lot there. What I was going to say about Trump as the one of the few positive things, I say, yeah, whenever. When a politician does something right, I praise him. If we're going to have carry permits, why would he said it should be treated any differently than like a driver's license? So and I have accidentally ended up in New Jersey twice in my life. I was playing in a band, and I'm trying to find where the place is I'd never been before, and all of a sudden here's my '85 Monte Carlo SS on a bridge, and I'm going. And I didn't have a gun at that time. I didn't carry or anything, but here I am. A cop pulls me over, and he's like. I'm like, I don't want to go to Jersey. And he's like, yeah, I know. You're beating the S out of your car. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you have to. And then you're going to have to pay $5 to come back. And that's just the way it is. So, and then another time I've been driving. I'm like, what is this bridge? And all of a sudden, you know.
Right.
So twice in my life, I've accidentally ended up in New Jersey. Now, this happened to a woman from Philadelphia who had been mugged. She had children. She went through the hurdles that you have to. It's one thing to get a carry permit in Pennsylvania.
Right.
But to get a carry permit as a resident of Philadelphia is a whole nother world, you know, for whatever reason. If they don't want to be part of Pennsylvania, secede, you know. So she went through she did everything the so-called right way. I'm doing the air quotes thing, the right way, the legal way. And so she got pulled over driving to New Jersey, and she just happened to say to the police officer, oh, yeah, by the way, I have my gun with me.
Right.
And he went,
yeah, so,
excuse me?
Right.
And she went to prison. You know?
And that's the big thing, is education. So back to the permit question, because I don't want to go down that road first.
Okay.
In terms of the permits, the way I feel about the universal permits, I'm against that. I'm against it because it just creates now it's going to have to be like a federally regulated thing, because all the states are going to have to be aligned. I actually appreciate the fact that states get to act independently and say, you know what, you don't need a permit here. Even though New Jersey is strict, they chose to do that. And if it was at the federal level, who knows which way it might go. I don't believe we should have to have a permit to carry a gun once we've passed a background check to legally purchase it. I think permits should go away, period. We've passed the background check to legally purchase a gun. Why do I need to get a permit now to have it with me?
Just to be clear, I wasn't saying we should have a federal.
No, I'm just saying the fact that not you, but that's what's been being pushed. People were trying to push the national carry permit when Trump was in office because they felt like they had a good shot. And my point was that it should be just a national constitutional carry once you pass the requirement and you possess the firearm. Because I don't want to go from one house of regulations, and because the other house, the lawn looks, preened, and okay, let's go into this house. You're still going to be heavily regulated. It's going to be another barrier to entry, and it's going to be another expense. So I think that me being an upstanding citizen and having access to a firearm, carrying it on me should not require a permit. I've done the due diligence to make sure that I'm a law-abiding citizen. Now I think you're overreaching your boundaries, in my opinion.
All right, now I'm going to argue with you by agreeing with you even more. No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I just want to be clear that I don't want the audience to think that I was calling for a national permit.
Gotcha.
I was praising Trump when he said treat it like a driver's license. So I have a Pennsylvania driver's license. I don't have to park my car on the Pennsylvania side of the road and walk to the rest of the radio station here.
Right.
I'm free to travel in 50 states. I don't know how you get to Hawaii accidentally. You know?
Right.
But anyway, so my driver's
absolutely.
license, that's all I meant. So if you were from a state that didn't require any permit, Eden or heaven or where, you know, like the greatest state ever. Is Utah that way or?
No, Utah, actually, I don't know if they've changed anything. I know they've made some changes with their resident permit versus non-resident permits, because I have a Utah non-resident permit.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure. I haven't looked to see if they've done away with that for residents, but they still have non-resident permits, so I assumed it was the same, that they still have resident permits.
If I had to guess one, I probably would say New
I
Hampshire.
think Vermont.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely
New Hampshire is becoming a libertarian paradise where they're getting rid of a lot of laws and getting rid of a lot of taxes and this and that. They want all libertarian, liberty-minded people to move to one state, and that's a thing that's actually really happening, believe it or not. So you know, we have another call calling in. I want to I'm going to put them on the air. I don't have a screener, so. Let's go lock in Dave. And hi, you're live on WDEL. Who's this?
Hey, Randy. It's Sherry in Smyrna.
Hey, Sherry. How are you?
Good. I'm good. You're doing a great job. It's good to hear you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're too kind. But I'm juggling a lot of things here. So,
I wanted to. Am I on the air?
Yeah. Yes, you are. Yes. Yes.
Okay. I wanted to chime in because I like these guys. I like what I'm hearing. I'm glad that they're a supporter, and I think that what they're doing is a good thing. The only thing that I would dispute about what he just said recently, and if I missed anything additional, I apologize because I was calling in, with the permits. Yes, you can buy a gun and they do a background check, and I get that. And the only dispute I have is that I don't think it means that you should automatically be able to carry a gun, simply because when you get a license to drive, you do have to learn to operate the vehicle first. You have to have training. You have to know the rules and the safeties of operating a vehicle because it's a big responsibility. So the same, I would say, goes for owning a weapon, carrying a weapon, because it's not that simple. They should know how to carry it. They should know how to use it. They should know how to clean it. They should know how to store it and secure it so that you don't have safety issues, because that is a big responsibility, and it does come with owning and carrying a weapon. So
I'm sorry,
when they do require that you go and shoot and take training to shoot the weapon, I'm a very big advocate of that, because you can tell a woman, hey, go get a gun to protect yourself, but if she doesn't know how to use it, it's just going to be taken. And that goes for men too. It's just going to be taken from you, and now it's going to be used against you. So that's the only thing I haven't heard so far that I would say I do support, is that you do have to have some kind of training like you do when you operate a vehicle.
Thank you. I appreciate you raising that point. I agree with everything you said in terms of you should have training before you decide to utilize a firearm for self-defense. That's the basis of my page. However, the main point that I will raise is that our right to bear arms is written in the Constitution, and driving is a privilege. So they're not the same. You can't even compare them. Driving licenses and automobiles and the way we use them weren't written into the Constitution. Our right to bear arms is written into our nation's document. So that's not the same thing. And before I forget, because I have ADD, it's Vermont, Idaho, where you have permitless carry. Utah, you do have to have a permit as residents. And those permitless carry states it's said for the residents only.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you. You know what I loved the most was your fire extinguisher example. And I meant to comment on that, and then I kind of have ADD too. We go off on tangents on this show nonstop. But then while you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, his fire extinguisher thing was the coolest thing I've ever heard. Like, well, why have that? Just call the fire company and wait 15 minutes. They'll be here.
Exactly.
Yeah, or 10 minutes or whatever it is. So Sherry, any rebuttal?
Yeah, I'm sorry. He's kind of breaking up. I'm going down south, so I don't know if you're going to lose me or if you can hear me.
As you're breaking up,
yeah.
Sherry, I'm going to just
text in if I can.
Okay, text in something. Yeah, I'm going to disconnect so we don't fight this. Sorry, Sherry.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
So I would just say to her, if she's still listening, and to anybody out there, that prohibition is always the root cause of these problems. So 40, 50, 60 years ago, kids were learning how to shoot in school, like junior high school. And you could order a gun from, the back of a comic book, and, this was the reality, and we didn't have, mass shootings or any kind of, mass violence that you're seeing today. So prohibition is always the problem. Most gun violence, certainly in Wilmington, the drug war is the root cause of the majority of this, the vast majority. Again, prohibition. You create that black market. What's on the black market? Drugs and guns. And as Alex said, it's fairly easy to get a gun on the street. Like the incentive, is there. It's easy, and you're not on the list. So they've created this. They've created the black market, and we need to, through education, get into the communities and teach them that it is their right to bear arms and defend themselves and, be responsible gun owners. But no, the idea that you should have to, arbitrarily, make up an age and make up a certain amount of hours and make up anything. No, absolutely not. If, a 10-year-old should be able to learn how to shoot a firearm if their parent deems that at the time.
Absolutely, I agree. My sons learned how to shoot, and it came out of a matter of necessity, in my opinion, as an instructor. And it being something that I proactively do, he has exposure to it. And so as I teach everyone, when you have firearms in the home, your number one responsibility is safety. And so you have to make sure that you educate your children properly, especially if you see that they're eager. You need to at least, even if you don't plan on having them shoot, you need to educate them just in case by some strange chance they happen to encounter a firearm either by your negligence or they're in someone else's home. They at least know what to do immediately. And there are several programs out there that help with that. We have to take that responsibility. That's the first responsibility we have to take is safety and education. And so, doing that in a responsible way, I think takes my son's not eager to find where I have my gun stored and locked away. He's looking to see when I put my phone down unattended because he knows I don't want him to go near my phone because it's not a toy. But because it's something that's part of his life and his culture, it's just like, okay, when we do that, and I may read up about it, we may talk about it, but it's nothing where he's showing eagerness to go and do in an unethical way. And so the education is big. When you remove the ignorance, you also remove the fear, and you can kind of deal with things more proactively.
Awesome. What are some of the things people can do if you've swayed any opinions today as far as just instead of gun bad, government good, or whatever, because some people might want to be able, God forbid, protect themselves. I know I personally took some training courses, but they cost money. Right. But I paid for them, and before I ever touched one, I wanted to not create bad habits. I wouldn't be like, oh, well, you jam it down your pants. So I took about 11 hours of gun safety voluntarily. In Pennsylvania, you don't have to. Right. And that's the way it should be. You don't have to. But I just, on a personal level, if I didn't feel like I was a good driver, I would take a driving course, or whatever. Not to bring it back to comparing driving to a privilege to a right.
Right. No, so the right and the privilege, no, but I do use driving as an analogy. You take driver's ed, you learn about the tool before you buy a car because you need to know what you're buying. I recommend everyone taking a course. I think the NRA basic pistol courses are great. I don't know anything about a firearm, but I want to get one type of course. It's going to start and focus on the safety. Make sure you have the nomenclature, how the tool operates, how it functions, and then things that you can do to continue your learning. I think that's important. The education part is important. If you have access to a gun club, I'm a member of the Delaware State Pistol Club, and on Friday nights we have, in my opinion, it's kind of like a family-oriented night where you can shoot 22s at silhouettes, and if you don't have a firearm, we provide firearms for you to utilize, and it's a minimum cost, a couple dollars. So find you a safe environment where you could learn about the tool before you decide to venture on your own, because education is the most important part about it. So yeah, take a basic gun class. And again, I stress that before you go and buy the gun, because you're going to wind up buying another gun. If you buy a gun based on, how, like, you like the way it look, or any reason other than you use it efficiently and become comfortable with it, you're going to wind up using something else. So taking a class first may save you a couple dollars. Learning about the tool, that way you can proactively make that purchase.
Yeah, you don't want to learn it because it looked cool in the movie True Romance.
Right.
Toss me the burner.
Because that's what I did. My first 2 or 3 guns, I don't own them anymore, because I bought them because of the caliber, how they looked, and
the finish.
The finish on it, exactly. All the unimportant stuff.
Yeah. All right. Do you offer safety courses yourself? You might as well plug what you do. Feel free to.
I have a business, Civilian Self-Defense Concepts and Principles is my business. I teach the Delaware Concealed Carry course. I teach the NRA CCW course, which is the follow-up. After you get your permit, you need to learn the fundamentals, how to draw from concealment, how to efficiently use your firearm for self-defense. I teach children classes. I had a children class last month. I've taught probably 3 of her children. Teach children classes, the intro to pistol class, and I teach private lessons, and that website is civilianself-defense.com for the training. And also you can reach out to me for questions. I love having conversations. I love having conversations with anti-gun people, because let's have a realistic, logical conversation so that you can go back and do your homework afterwards, because that's what eventually happens.
All right. Well, with the few minutes we have left, so Tammy, you're an instructor as well. Did you?
I am.
You learned from Alex?
I did.
And then you get a certification?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a few certifications. I got my basic pistol from Alex. I train with him, and I also do the medical side with him. So I teach Stop the Bleed, as he mentioned, CPR and first aid, because that's just as important as well.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. That's very good. Very good. And so if somebody wanted to get a Florida permit, because a friend of mine actually called me that it's not somebody I speak to all the time, but a super nice guy. And he called me out of the blue because another friend said, I knew how to get a Florida permit. Could someone, you need to get you need to pass a course. And I bet you yours is more than likely certifiable.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So in order to have, most states that give you a non-residence permit, such as Pennsylvania and Utah, you have to have your home state's permit. So the course that you take to get your home state's permit, if it incorporates everything that it should, will satisfy your requirement for Florida without having to take another class. So you basically get your Delaware permit and utilize either your permit itself or your permit and your certificate once you fill out the Florida application, because you request that through the Florida website. They'll send you a packet, you do the fingerprinting and all that, send them, the requirements, and then you'll get your permit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. Dave,
thank you for having us.
Anything else, Dave?
Yeah, well, thank you, Alex. I appreciate the work you're doing, man. Thank you for teaming up with us, man, on that press release.
Anytime.
And Randy, thank you for the opportunity. I'm very grateful. And if anybody's listening and you want to reignite the Ron Paul revolution, go to takehumanaction.com, fill out a couple things, and your local Libertarian Party affiliate will reach out to you. Yeah, I'm in Newcastle County. If you guys are out there and you want maximum freedom all the time across the board.
I'm sorry. That's why Ron Paul always endorsed the gun owners of America instead of the NRA, because he was like, they were the no compromise gun organization. So then the NRA would give him like an A-, even though the GOA would give him. And there couldn't be anybody more pro-2A than Ron Paul. But that's neither here nor there. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Have a great day, and we'll be back right after these words.